All right, hello, my name is Daniel.
And I'm Durant with a T at the end.
And welcome to another Emacs tutorial. Today we're going to talk about sort of how to configure your init files in this case, with org mode and this package called use package. And the init files are ways you can sort of configure Emacs, right? We saw it last time.
That's right. Yeah, this video is actually going to sort of tell you all the things we're going to do in this series, and they're all going to be based on configuring configuring Emacs in a very organized way.
Right. So I guess I should give some history and why should we use org mode or use package to do our init files instead of the normal way, which is plain old Emacs Lisp, right? So here's org mode first of all, and it has headers. You can organize with subtrees, you can collapse them, sort of show a summary. So in this case, it's a summary we're going to talk about today, and this org mode has links, so you can click on them. So actually, I'm going to click on this one, which shows off my old init file from before org mode and use package. And when I was first learning Emacs, I wrote this init file, and I just sort of haphazardly put configuration code wherever I wanted to, or wherever it felt right, wherever made it work, and it wasn't too organized, right? I have this section of how to install packages. I have just random things that aren't really organized. I have customization files just put in here in the middle. I have key bindings for some reason here. Then right after my key bindings, I load my theme, and then I require IDO. There's no really good way to read this organization or read this init file, right?
I think all of us, when we first create our initialization file, we just kind of copy paste stuff in there, and then later try to at least put it in some kind of order, but all those ways are not as good as what you're about to see today.
Yeah, so after having this init file, I had to move on to better ways to sort of configure my Emacs. So the modern way I do it, it's also online on GitHub at this link, but I'm going to open up here in Emacs. So I click this link. Now it's going to open up in a new buffer. So here is my initialization file. And so here's how it starts off. I can write everything in org mode, and this actually gets loaded into Emacs eventually with some configuration on top of this, right? So I have I can actually write my thoughts on certain parts of my configuration. Okay, well, here's a part where I'm trying to install Emacs. This isn't actually Emacs Lisp code, but this is a source block that sort of says, well, here's something you can execute on your own computer, right? And you can actually add different languages here. For example, this is a shell source block, and here's one for Emacs Lisp. So every source block has a hash plus begin source, and has Emacs Lisp, right?
So let's repeat an important part of this. This configuration file, this .org file, is the actual file that gets loaded by Emacs.
Technically, I can write everything here, and Emacs actually spits out a different file called config.el. So this one's called config.org, and it's actually going to load config.el
okay.
after exporting all the source blocks into its own file, and actually going to load this plain Emacs version.
So the .org file is processed, and the output of that is what's loaded.
Yeah, but
okay.
I never even touched this file. This is just the process output.
Got it.
And I'm only going to work on this file. That way I can write my notes, organize everything. Again, I can collapse all these headers and see a good overview of my configuration. I can sort of have subtrees, okay, here's my themes that I have installed. Here's the external packages.
So let's look at that theme. So in your old .el, the initial, the old style .el, init.el file, you had configured a theme, right? And there was some eLisp in it. And here, so if you were to open this Cyberpunk theme right there, so there's actual eLisp again, this is doing your configuration. Is that right?
Right.
Yeah. Also, you showed me something cool, which was when you shared this on GitHub. Can you go to the file where this .org file is shared on GitHub?
Right. So let me go back to the page on GitHub.
Yeah.
So here it is. Has README. So mainly look back to the same file, which is config.org. And again, so you see the same document here, but it's formatted differently. So I can show them side by side. You'll see that it looks exactly the same, at least content-wise, but
so there's a Cyberpunk theme on that side then too.
GitHub has their own org style sheet, right?
That's awesome. So
they format it.
Okay, cool. Wow. So GitHub will take this org file and format it like this. It looks really nice with all these source blocks in there. Cool. All right, that's great.
So yeah, that's basically how do you can at a basic level use org mode with Emacs list source blocks to organize your init file. Say like here's where I'm going to configure key bindings. So this is where we're going to configure packages.
So the
theme.
So at the top level. So if we go back to your .org files, you can organize it any level of depth you want. So if you have like different headers, right? So you have a subheader, you have a header theme, and then a subheader cyberpunk theme. You can have as many. Can you have as many different subheaders as you want, as deep as you want?
Right, correct. So I can have like level 3, level 4.
Cool.
Just keeps going down.
So this can be as organized as you want. It doesn't matter. Ultimately, it'll produce this other file that gets loaded by Emacs to do the configuration. Okay,
right.
Cool.
So this is part 1, right? Using org mode to organize your files.
Awesome.
I use this package to set up my package. It's called use package.
Can we go full screen here?
Yeah, I can go full screen. I'll make the text bigger as well. All right, so here we're in use package, and this is like the way I typically configure all my packages, right? It's just an external package. If you read the README online, if you search like GitHub use package, you'll get to the documentation on how to use this.
Oh, you had a link before, right?
Right, so on top I have a link to it. So this configuration uses the use package, so I can like open it up. In org mode, I use Control-C, Control-O to open up links instead of clicking on them, but I could click on them as well. And here's the documentation here. But essentially, it allows you to sort of reduce the repetition in configuring your files, right? And even the author says it helps him like speed up his organization or speed up the load time of his Emacs initialization, because like there's a whole bunch of requires, and like his package allows him to sort of defer loading at certain points into the configuration, right, until you actually use the package.
So typically when we load a new package for the first time, we go to like maybe a home page. It tells us we need to copy some eLisp code in, but this will have us write those same customizations, but in a different style. Is that right? Like looking at this example?
Right. So like in this particular example, I say, I'm going to use this package called CyberTheme. Typically when you wanted to use the package, you have to say require and say which package you want to acquire. In that case, this is sort of hidden inside use package, right? So I never have to explicitly say the require line. But in this particular case, it says, well, I want to install the package from ELPA if it's not available yet, or if it's not installed on my computer yet. And then I'm going to run some initialization right here, which says, oh, well, when the package loads, I want to just load the theme, and I also want to set these sort of styles I wanted to configure for this theme. In this case, it was making the mode line here not have this blue border. So if I like evaluate this, like the blue border disappears, and this is for the other buffer when it's not active. But yeah, that's pretty much
cool.
That's pretty much it.
So today you're going to show everyone how to like just load a new theme and how you might use how to set it up in this file.
Right.
And later we'll go into depth. Like we'll talk about more details of use package, more details of org mode, more details of the source blocks.
Exactly. So if I want to install a new package, I can always go to that list packages command, right, and sort of load up this whole package list and find the one I want. Say I want to like install Nyan mode or something. I can install Nyan mode and like press I and press X and like it would install. In this case, I'm not gonna press X here, but like doing it this way, it doesn't allow me to write down whatever packages I have installed, because I want to document everything I've installed in my Emacs, right? So I can sort of configure it, whether it's on a new computer or like even just documenting it for the sake of having it written it down, right?
Right.
So I'm gonna exit this package list, and I have this temporary space at the end of my configuration, just a habit I have where I have like packages I installed recently, and then I want to sort of like keep it there.
I see. So you'll add these new modes here, and later you'll figure out where they go.
Yeah, in my configuration.
This is
like my testing ground, right? So say I want to install Nyan mode, so I'm gonna add a source block. The shortcut here in org mode is to do less than S and press tab, and now I have a source block. I'm gonna say it's gonna run Emacs Lisp here, and now I can do Control-C single quote.
Yeah, so let's talk about. So we'll go into more detail about these source blocks later. But so you're basically saying what language this source block's going to be in, right? And it could be Python, C. Like there's a list of right. Okay, cool. So this is Emacs Lisp.
Right. So I'm going to do Control-C single quote, and now I'm going to go into like the mode specific buffer where I can just edit it using the normal mode, like syntax highlighting or syntax, even indentation, all that stuff.
Yeah, we can see it says Emacs Lisp on the mode line down there. Right? That's pretty cool. Okay.
And if I exit it, it'll say org mode, but here I want to be in Emacs Lisp mode, right?
Yeah.
So in this case, I'm going to write use package, and I'm going to say, well, I want to install Nyan mode, and it's going to match the same name on the package list. And in this case, if I try to run this, it'll say like, no, right? Like, there's nothing, it hasn't been installed yet, I can't use it. So there's a little trick here, which is we can sort of say ensure T, which is true in Emacs. And now it'll say, well, load up Nyan mode, but if you don't have it installed, first download it, install it, and then
so you have not installed Nyan mode here, and this is, but you're about to do it right now.
Right, so I'm going to press Control-X, Control-E to evaluate this Lisp. Now it's connecting to Melpa. I should save my file here. And now it's loaded it up. Now I can do MX 9 mode, and now it's enabled. Now it allows me to see my percentage of the buffer.
And look, there it is at the bottom of your mode line.
There it is, and it's dancing. But yeah, if you want to learn more about use packaged, there's a great video by the author, John Wrigley. I'm right here. If I click on this link, the talk's called Emacs Package Highlight Use Package. So you watch this talk, really great talk about the author talking about why this package exists, how he uses it, how to configure it, and sort of little neat tricks you can do to use package.
I'm super excited because I can finally organize my init files. This is amazing.
All right, and in the future we're going to talk about configuring these other packages for sort of HTML web development stuff.
Yeah, so as we talk about each of these packages, we'll be entering them into a configuration file using this style of org file with use package.
And it allows you to, sort of have one setup that's always documented and like go to a different computer and always know how you set up your Emacs, right? It's not going to be a black box, not going to be a mystery. All right, and the last thing we're going to show you today is how Emacs will load that config.org file, right? That's a special org mode file, and you want to actually execute all the code and the configuration we have in that config.org.
Sounds good.
So Emacs reads off, starts off your config with init.el, right? So I'm going to go to init.el, and here's mine, and we see I just do some initial kind of setup here where I say, well, if I'm loading a GUI Emacs, I'm going to, so actually, first off, this code will actually run, Emacs will read it off from the file and load it straight up, right? No need to change up the file or like with the org file, we're gonna have to extract all the source code blocks. This is just plain old Emacs Lisp code.
Yeah, so the init.el file is always loaded by Emacs, and it's expecting eLisp code. It's .el. Okay.
Yeah. So here, I just do I just say, well, if I'm loading a GUI Emacs, I'm going to turn off all the special GUI elements that I'm not going to use. Then I set up this initialization part where I say, well, there's an initial message with a scratch buffer, like just keep that empty. So here's where I set up package.el and say, well, load up packages and get stuff from the Melpa repository, right? That's where I want to download packages from, and initialize the package manager. Now, here's a special part where if I'm ever on a new Emacs, I'm going to, so this part is not important about the org mode file, but it's just stepping through what I do in my init, which is if I have a new Emacs and I install Emacs fresh for the first time, I'm not going to have all my packages, right? So use packages is not going to know where to fetch all these packages, or I'm not going to even have use package. So I'm going to say, well, unless use package is installed, so if it's not installed, I'm going to execute this block and say, well, if it's not installed, I actually want to install use package, so I have to refresh the package archive that the package.el will read from, and then I'm going to install it, to install the use package package, right?
So if you went onto a new machine and you downloaded this file and just started up Emacs, it would then start running this, even without any packages installed.
Right, because it's going to actually go through the process of setting up the package manager and then installing use package.
Okay,
right?
cool.
So use package, if I go to the README here, it tells us that here's some configuration you can put into your init.el. There used to be a previous version where use package was needed at runtime. Now in the new version, it's no longer needed. So I can actually copy paste this whole block of code and put it in my init file just to load up use package efficiently. And I'm also going to use the diminish package as well as bind key. So I'm going to put that also in my init file. So that's that. Here's the main important line here where I load up the config.org file. So I have a sort of a string that represents my path to config.org, and let's just step through this inside out. I'm going to get the path of config.org, which is located in my .emacs.d directory, right? So this is a variable, so if I do Control-H-V and see the value of this variable, it says, okay, its value is the home directory .emacs.d. And I'm just going to concatenate these two strings together. So I'm going to get the actual file path for my config.org, and the special function here, org babel load file. If I do Control-H-F, show off the function definition or documentation, it says, okay, I'm going to load up the Emacs lib source block code blocks in the org mode file. This function exports the source code using org babel tangle, and then loads that resulting file using load file. So what this means is that having those source blocks denoted with Emacs Lisp is very important. So I'm going to split my screen here and go to config.org again, and if I go back down to a block, and we see like having this source block with Emacs Lisp is very important, because this is what the org babel load file function is going to take in and generate or export all these blocks into a config.el file, which it eventually loads with that load file function. So if I go to config.el, here it is, the raw Emacs Lisp code that will just eventually get loaded in. It's the same exact code that comes from the config.org, but it doesn't have all the org mode like headers or links. It just has the pure Emacs Lisp code, right?
Okay, so it's anything source block you make in there that says elisp, it will extract it and create this file, and it names it by convention. It just takes off the .org and it puts .el. Is that right? Okay, so and then it evaluates it. Is that right? So all these things basically run. Mm-hmm. Is that true? And so then, and inside that is all the use package. So that's how the whole thing works then.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, cool.